Hi, this is the answer key to this semester's Works Cited quiz, in which you were to take a bunch of sources. You were given pieces of information about those sources. You had to decipher where to put what, in what order, with what punctuation, all in accordance with MLA format 8th edition. So as we look at this, first of all, you see it begins with Works Cited, centered on its own line, capital W, capital C. It is not underlined, it is not bolded, it is not italicized, it is not put in a different font, it is not put in a different size font. It is simply centered. Once you're done with that, then you go back out to the left with what's called left justification. Also, Works Cited pages should always feature hanging indentation. That's this feature here, where all lines after the first line are indented in. Okay? The purpose for the hanging indentation is it makes it much easier to read these first words in the entries. I realize that in some word processing programs, this is easier to do than in others. Also, this is in alphabetical order. We do not put works by order that they appear in the essay, or how frequently we use them, or the order in which you discovered them in your research. Alphabetical order. This is pretty easy with a couple of exceptions. First of all, you see an inconvenient truth. Some of you may have placed it first because of the word and. We always skip the articles, the, a, or an, and go to the next word, which is inconvenient in this case. Otherwise, we'd have big clumps of sources at and a and the. Now, individual pieces. The first article, based on alphabetical order, is an article from a newspaper found on a website. You put author, last name first name last, comma, period. Title of the article is in quotation marks. Please note the capitalization of all important words, especially the first and last word, and we have a period at the end. The period is inside the quotation mark. Then we put the name of the periodical, in this case the New York Times, in italics. It is followed by a comma. This is different from earlier versions of MLA, which would have had a period there. Here we have a comma. And the date, 23 May 2013, comma. Now this is from a website, so there are no page numbers. Then we have the URL, which in this case takes up the entire line. A feature that I ask you to do is say, when did you get this? That's the access date. This, by the way, is an option in MLA format. It is not always included. The handbook does give it as an option, and in my classes, I want it. Access 24 May 2013. The next piece is an interview. You cite it by the person who was interviewed. Ellis, Scott, interview by. And then you're going to put your name here, assuming you're the person who did the interview. Interview by the author, meaning you, whoever your name is. Your name will be straightforward, period, and then the date. You do not have to put how the interview was conducted, whether it's personal interview, telephone interview. That is irrelevant. The next work is a work that has been republished. It has an editor. What does this mean? It means the book came out once. It was popular enough that it came out again. Often when it comes out again, it has an editor because a significant amount of time has passed and somebody gets involved. So here we have Freud, Sigmund, period, Dr. Sigmund Freud, right? Dora, an analysis of a case of hysteria. Now, Dora is the title. Separates the title from the subtitle. This is usually not presented in the title page with a colon, right? There's nothing really there. It's usually big print, Dora, then smaller print, an analysis of a case of hysteria. Period. Now, 1963, this is the earlier date, so this is the original publication date. Period. Then this book has been edited by Philip Reif. Okay, so that's where the editor's name goes, comma, Collier, comma, 1993, period. It wouldn't be very hard to find this editor information. It would typically be on the title page itself. Movies. Now, there's a lot of different ways to cite a movie. If we were in film school and we were studying the works of a particular director or a particular actor, we might lead with that information. We're not. We're not interested in that. What we're interested in is the movie itself. In this case, the movie is called An Inconvenient Truth, italicized, period. Then we give directed by Davis Guggenheim. I know it's a little confusing because Davis looks like a last name for somebody, but it's really his first name. Comma, performances by Al Gore, Billy West, George Bush, and George W. Bush, comma, Paramount, comma, 2006, period. The next piece is an electronic book, an e-book. E-books are handled pretty much like real books. Well, I mean real books, print copies of books, except for one key piece of information. So, first of all, I'm going to give the author. Last name first name last, McCabe, comma, Kimberly A, comma. This book has actually two authors. So the second author's name is given straight. That is first name first, last name last. So Anne Gregory M. Martin, in a period. The title of the book, School Violence, the Media and Criminal Justice Responses, italicized, period. Then we give the name of the publisher shortened, and this is Lang, comma, 2005, period. By the way, if you're wondering about the place of publication, in the 8th edition, MLA dropped place of publication, which I'm totally fine with because it never made any sense anyway. But because this is an online book, I want to also give the database that had the book. This is one of our databases here at Mesa College, ebook collection, EBSCOhost, period. Now, if you were to actually find this and use the citation help online, you might get a URL afterwards. I don't particularly want you to give me a URL for a subscription service. That's what this is, a subscription service. Because I can't use that URL anyway. This New York Times example up here, I could copy, paste, put that into my browser, and bammo, I'd be at the article. That will not happen with a subscription service. So there's no need, no point in having the URL. The next example is a work that appears in an anthology. An anthology is a book which is a collection of articles and essays, etc. Monsters is a great example of an anthology, our textbook for the class. So here's another one. Last name first name last, period. Title of the article, Global Warming is not a serious problem, period. The environment. And then again, we have an editor, edited by L. Lingendorf, comma, publisher, Greenhaven, year of publication. Then we put the page numbers that this particular article shows up in inside of the anthology. PP stands for multiple pages, 43 to 52, period. And then we have at issue, which is a series, a book in a series. This should strike you as incredibly familiar because this is exactly what we did in Chapter 1 with the monster book. I gave you the example of how to cite articles out of monsters. It's based exactly on this same model. The words are different, the format is the same. The next piece is an article from a database, which is a government database, or the government website, pardon me. Number of Americans with diabetes rises to nearly 25 million. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that's the name of the website. In this case, and this is unusual, often the names of websites and the sponsoring organization are the same, but in this case they're not. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and this was posted on the 26th of January 2011. Please also note you have no author, so it begins with the title. We don't write anonymous or NA, and we don't repeat Center for Disease Control and Prevention as the author. It's a common mistake. Then, next one, we have another newspaper article. This time, instead of coming from a website, it comes from one of our databases. It operates very similarly to the first example. Author, period, the article in quotation marks, period, New York Times, comma, date, comma. In this example, we did have access to at least one page number, A14. Now on the test, it said A14 and a second page number, but it wasn't sequential. It didn't go to A15. So if you know that the page numbers are not sequential, but there are multiple pages, put this plus sign afterwards, A14 plus. That means it began on that page, and then it went on into hyperspace. Then the name of the database, Newspaper Source Plus. Again, I don't want the URL for a database because, frankly, I can't use it. Here's an email. This is an email sent to you, the student. You put down the name of the person who wrote the email, Rossiter, Jonathan. Then you put down the subject heading. The subject heading is the title for what you're doing. Global warming in quotation marks. Then you just say received by, and then your name, comma, and then the date. Now in the 7th edition of MLA, it would have said email right here, but in 8th edition, we got rid of that. Lastly, we have a source that had many authors. In MLA, if you have one author or two authors, you need to, of course, give the full information for those people. But if you have 3 or more authors, you only put down the first author listed. Don't rearrange the names, for crying out loud. Just accept it the way that it comes to you. The first author is the lead author. And then we write the words ET period AL period. This, of course, as we all remember from grammar school, is Latin. Et meaning and all is an abbreviation for allis, meaning others, and others. Sherry Willis wrote this, but she did not write it by herself. She wrote it with many other people. Who are those other people? I don't know unless I look specifically at the article itself. It's not necessary for me to list it, though, in the works cited. Then I have the title. Again, please note the capitalization across the board, the use of quotation marks for the title of the article. The periodical, the Chronicle for Driver Education Professionals, which is italicized, comma, number 60, which is the edition number, the year 2013, excuse me, not edition, issue, my bad, issue number. The year of publication is 2013. The original page numbers are 14 through 17. In this case, we do know this for a fact. And then the database here is ProQuest, another one of our Mesa College databases, period there. And again, no URL. I only want URLs for sources that are part of what we might call the wide open web, where I can click on it, for example, or copy paste and put it into a browser, like in our first example. If it's from one of our databases like EBSCOhost, or Newspaper Source Plus, or ProQuest, or JSTOR, or any of the 20-odd other databases that we have, because we have quite a few. Actually, I think it's like over 80 now. I don't need, nor do I want, the URL. Okay, so that's how your works cited was supposed to look.